Chris Lang, Lynchburg News and Advance, probably one of the best in the business at covering his beat, which is the Liberty Flames. Chris joined me on the Sports Buffet podcast. On Wednesday, we discussed the Liberty Flames as well as the Big South as a whole for Week 1 of the college football season. It's Chris Lang on the Sports Buffet podcast.
Normally, it's painful for me to talk to Baltimore Orioles fans right now because they're tied with my Yankees right there in the standings. Chris Lang, though, never a pain to talk to him, even though he is an Orioles fan. Joins me on the Sports Buffet podcast. Outstanding job covering the Liberty Flames for the News in Advance. And Chris, ever so close to knocking off the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest on Saturday. Let's talk about what went right for Liberty first.
Well, first off, what went right was their defense was as good as I thought they were going to be. You look at it on paper and you say, well, they look like they have all this talent, but at the same time, you're going, well, they're making a defensive scheme change, and at times, a lot of that talent was around last year when they gave up 31 points to DMI, 41 points to Tony Brook at the end of the season, so there was a little bit of a doubt in the back of my head, but it was pretty apparent after those first 2 or 3 Wake Forest drives on Saturday that defense was legit. It was nasty. Wake was able to do nothing on the perimeter. The only thing that they could get going was little screen passes and short outs to the Campanaro kid and their running backs. So Liberty's defense very good. And then the second thing you found out is that Brian Hudson is certainly ready to be the starting quarterback for that football team. He made the one mistake through the pick six that ultimately you look at it and say pretty much cost him the game because they lose by 3. But at the same time, he was the reason they were in the game. He played with a lot of poise, played with a lot of smarts, good decision making for the most part, good resourcefulness. Did a really good job getting out of trouble on a couple of occasions where he could have very easily panicked and taken game changing sacks. He finds a way to make some plays on those plays. So those are the 2 big takeaways from that one for sure.
Now on the side maybe of not so good, where did Liberty disappoint or let down?
Well, the running game still didn't look great, and I think a lot of that has to do with the absence of Eldrake Allen, who was suspended for an incident well before at the end of training camp. I'm not sure exactly what the incident was. It was just a violation of team rules. You know how football coaches are. They don't really want to talk about exactly what that violation was. It was nothing sinister, law-breaking, anything like that as far as I know. But, without him, Sir Chauncey Holloway is a good runner on the outside. He's a guy that certainly can get going there, but he struggled a little bit in between the tackles. You're still big enough to go in and take a pounding like that against a pretty good FBS defensive line led by nose guard Nikita Whitlock that was a second-team All-ACC performer last year. So it was difficult going on the run game. The other things that stood out to me that the punt coverage at times looked a little shaky. I thought that Grant Dowden did a nice job getting some of them off, but Wake Forest almost got in there 2 or 3 times, and I thought the first couple of kicks Grant was a little slow getting rid of the football, and that may have played something into it. But he really improved on that as the game went along. Same thing. It's a guy that hadn't seen game action in a long time. So those are really the two things. If I really wanted to nitpick, I could say it's the safeties a little bit, the pass coverage, but at the same time, safeties are generally not there's a reason they're not cornerbacks, So, but the corners were fantastic, physical and in coverage.
I think when my daughters get old enough and I tell them that they're grounded and they ask why, I'm just going to say it was a violation of team rules. I love that line. I love that line.
That's a great line. That's the great nebulous thing to say.
As we are recording this interview on a Wednesday afternoon, definitely thoughts and prayers and sympathies out to Turner Gill and his family as his mother unexpectedly passed away. What's the status of Coach Gill for Saturday?
He'll be here. He's in Texas all week, and he plans on coming back to town, I believe, Friday at some point. He's got a very the upside of having a very experienced coaching staff. He's got 2 guys that were Division I head coaches on his staff, and Dennis Wagner, who is at Western Carolina, and Carl Torbush, who is at North Carolina. So it's not like he's leaving the keys to a bunch of inexperienced guys who don't know what they're doing. These guys can handle his absence during the week. And, Coach Torbush said yesterday the biggest thing missing this week is just kind of the camaraderie and whatnot, and the sort of uplifting nature that Turner Gill brings to the team during the week. But as far as just running X's and O's and running practices, they're okay right now. And I think I got the impression from talking to a lot of the guys that they really want to go out and win this one for him because they know he's hurting. It's a tough thing to go through, and they certainly would love to reward him on Saturday with the win in his home opener.
I'm going to ask you this question, and if I need to explain it, I will do so before we talk about Norfolk State. Was there anything that's kind of fool's gold on Saturday in terms of if you're a Liberty fan and think, wow, we're really great in this area, but maybe not as great of we just kind of excelled Saturday, if you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just think in general you can look at that game and think of it as fool's gold. When you come close to beating an ACC opponent that, let's face it, Wake was missing some weapons. They were missing their best defensive back, who was a freshman All-American last year. They were missing running back got knocked out with a concussion halfway through the game, and they were replacing some pieces on offense. And I just think sometimes fans can get carried away and go, well, if Liberty only lost 20-17 to Wake Forest, it means they should go out and kill everybody on their schedule. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Quite honestly, I don't think Wake Forest is going to be even close to the toughest road game that they play this year. That'll be next week up in Missoula.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think the Liberty players are buying into that, or do you think, I don't want to say it was a fluke, obviously, because they lost the game also, but do you think that they're buying into, hey, we still got a lot of work to do just because we came up 3 points short to a Division I A football team?
They're upset that they came up 3 points short. That was not a team walking off the field last week that looked happy about hanging in there. I think they have much bigger aspirations, and they're upset because they felt like they had a chance to win that game, and they let it slip through their fingers. And they had a couple of situations where they certainly had good reason to feel that way. So I don't think so at all. I think that they're hungry to win games. There's enough players around that have been around for the last 3 or 4 years of playoff near misses and not being able to win that one big game that they were just upset about. That felt more like one of their losses to like Stony Brook or something than it did really coming close against an ACC opponent.
When you say they have bigger aspirations, do you think those aspirations are coming from Turner Gill, or are they coming from the fan base, or are they coming from the returning players, guys like Pat Kelly and others?
I think it's a mix of all three of those. The fan base certainly is. I don't know what the realistic expectations were for this season, because it was so everything was so kind of mysterious in terms of closing the practices and not really knowing what kind of offensive schemes we're going to use. Anytime you ask the offensive coaching staff during the offseason and during training camp, so what are we going to see out there? The answer was, well, a little bit of everything, and that's what you did see on Saturday. They did a lot of different things, ran some play action, ran some option, ran some read option, ran a little bit of spread, straight up pro-style offense. They did a lot of little short passes to tight ends and whatnot. So they were doing a lot of different things, and so the expectations were just wait and see after the first week. I think that's probably why so many people were jumping on that game and saying, okay, if anything, for the fan base, it was a relief.
Right.
I think they wanted to see, all right, there isn't going to be a drop-off here, and maybe Turner Gill is worth the hype and whatnot, and that's something that I think people needed to see up close before they made that judgment. But certainly, I think everybody has kind of got that mentality that it's about time this football program takes the next step, considering all of the financial things that have gone into it in terms of stadium improvements and weight rooms and offices and locker rooms and all that stuff. That they're really anxious to see that translated into playoff appearances at this level as long as they're still here.
Norfolk State is the opponent this week. They'll come into Williams Stadium on Saturday. Tell me about Norfolk State.
It's a good football team, and I think people are sleeping on them because they played in the MEAC. They went 9-2, 9-3 actually last season because they lost their playoff game, but won their conference. Beat some good teams in South Carolina State and other teams in that league. I know the bottom of that league is terrible, but it's no worse than the bottom of the Big South. Charleston Southern was 0-11 and embarrassing 0-11 last year, so it's kind of weird for anybody to throw stones at Savannah State and North Carolina A&T and people like that. But Norfolk's a good football team. They're struggling at quarterback a little bit early on. They're replacing the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year in Chris Wally there with a kid, I believe his name's Nico Flores, and he got off to a rough start last week against Virginia State. But their defense looked really good, led by a guy that Liberty fans should be familiar with, the linebacker Jamal Giddens, a kid that began his career at LU before moving over to Norfolk State.
If you were a Liberty fan or coach, what are maybe a couple things that would concern you about Norfolk State?
Their speed on the outside on offense and their speed on defense. Very athletic. Their linebackers are really strong all the way across, and they're a good tackling team. But on the outside, especially they've got Xavier Boyd's kid who started his career at Virginia Tech and transferred over to Norfolk State, and he's a guy that's really strong in making something out of a short play. He's athletic, he's strong, and it's going to be a really good matchup. I would assume Walt Aikens is probably going to draw that assignment, and that should be really fun to watch because Walt Aikens is as physical and athletic as a corner as you're going to find at this level.
I know, obviously, you only covered the Liberty Flames, but you have your pulse on the you have your finger on the Big South better than anybody I know. What are some of the other impressions from the league in Week 1?
Well, the big one to me is just Stony Brook is loaded. They're absolutely loaded. I think they're criminally underranked. They're sitting somewhere in the top, 17, 18 at this point of the season. I think they're a top 16. They're defensively, they're pretty good defensively. Offensively, they're just multiple everywhere. They've got two incredible running backs. They've got a quarterback who's no longer just kind of a game manager. He's a threat. They've got outside receivers that are threats. They absolutely tore up Central Connecticut last week, and Miguel Masonette may be the best running back in the country, not just the best running back in the Big South. So Stony Brook's very good. Charleston Southern, they were against Citadel last week. It was 14-all. Then they gave up 35 points in the third quarter, so you just wonder where their psyche is. They haven't won a game in a long time. Coastal Carolina looked good defensively against North Carolina A&T. Kid Dontavius Johnson was replacing their NFL draft pick Josh Norman, comes up three interceptions and ends up being the National Defensive Player of the Week. So that's got to be comforting for those guys down there. And then Presbyterian looked pretty good and very businesslike in handling their Division II opponent.
Should be a fun week again in the Big South, and Chris, hopefully we'll get you back on continuously throughout the year to update us on the Big South and the Flames. As always, thank you for your time.
No problem, Bob.